In the silent void of space, the starship Eclipse drifts through the endless dark, its destination uncharted, unexplored. Aboard its hull, 4 crew members lie frozen in cryosleep, their bodies preserved for a mission spanning decades. For 10 long years there has been no sound but the soft hum of the ship's systems, no movement but the steady pulse of life support maintaining its fragile cargo. The crew is made up of 4 individuals, chosen not for their connection to one another, but for their expertise and resolve. Captain Lynn Carter, the commanding officer, is the leader, a woman who has seen the cost of failure too many times in her past, but who carries the burden of command with steely determination. Beside her are twin brothers, Dr. Elias Munro, the biologist obsessed with the possibility of alien life, and Riley Munro, the engineer whose unorthodox methods often find him bending the rules to get the job done. Finally, there is Lieutenant Sam Hayes, the tactician, a calculated mind who never trusts anything or anyone at face value, not even Eclipse's artificial intelligence, Argos. For 10 years these 4 have remained motionless, dreaming nothing as the ship carries them toward their mission, but today something changes. A signal pierces the silence, a faint and distorted signal. Argos, the AI overseeing the journey, detects it. A transmission carrying coordinates to a planet designated as E27b. According to the archives, this world was deemed barren, desolate and uninhabitable, yet something or someone is broadcasting from its surface. The signal is not unfamiliar. It bears the identification code of a lost vessel, the Astrid, which disappeared over 15 years ago while on an expedition to this same planet. Astrid was humanity's leap into the unknown, a ship sent to break boundaries and explore distant stars. Its disappearance became a cautionary tale, a fate, a mystery that no one ever dared to uncover, until now. As Argos processes the data, it makes an unprecedented decision. The crew must be awakened. The cryosleep sequence is delicate, slow. These individuals were meant to remain in stasis for years longer, yet the AI prioritizes the signal, a call for help, or perhaps a warning. The ship's records state that E27b is lifeless, a dead world, yet something stirs there, something has changed. The mission of the Eclipse was never to rescue, never to investigate the past, but the signal is clear. The mystery of Astrid and the strange call from E27b have drawn this ship, this crew, towards a destiny they could never have foreseen. Questions linger, unspoken. Why did the Astrid vanish? What transformed E27b into a source of life, or a trap? And why was this signal only surfacing now, after 15 years of silence? As the crew sleeps, oblivious to the shift in their mission, Argus prepares them for what lies ahead. But some journeys should remain unfinished. Some signals should never be answered. On E27b, the line between life and death, rescue and ruin, is far thinner than it seems. For now the crew remains unaware of the secrets awaiting them, but their awakening is inevitable. In the vast silence of space, a single signal can change everything. The starship Eclipse glides silently through the dark, closing in on its new destination. To the left, the planet E27b looms, green, lush and vibrant. Its surface is blanketed by endless forests, with soft, swirling clouds drifting lazily through the atmosphere. It is beautiful, almost serene, a striking contradiction to its classification in the archives, which described it as a barren, desolate, uninhabitable world. To the right, Eclipse moves steadily closer, its sleek silhouette glinting faintly in the light of a distant sun. Inside, the crew watches as the planet grows larger with every passing second. They had not planned for this. None of them expected to be awake this soon, let alone approaching an uncharted world drawn in by a signal. But the call that had brought them here cannot be ignored. A garbled transmission carrying the identifier of the Astrid, a ship lost to the galaxy 15 years ago, originates from the surface of the planet. The Eclipse has no choice but to follow. The crew prepares in tense silence. Captain Lynn Carter, calm and focused, keeps her attention on the mission ahead, though her thoughts weigh heavy. To her side, Dr. Elias Munro stares out at the planet with wide-eyed fascination, his mind racing with possibilities, life, ecosystems, a chance to prove humanity is not alone. His twin brother Riley Munro is far more cautious. He knows how fragile a ship like this can be, and his instincts tell him there's more to this planet than there seems. Lieutenant Sam Hayes observes the scene in quiet calculation, questioning every motive of the planet, the signal, and the AI leading them here. Argos speaks without emotion, feeding them information as the planet comes closer into focus. A breathable atmosphere, gravity consistent with Earth, a vast surface of green, thriving vegetation, but the facts do nothing to explain the mystery. E27b is alive, its surface teeming with life, yet no records show why. How could a planet marked dead for decades suddenly flourish like this? As the planet fills the view, the crew struggles to reconcile what they're seeing with what they know. The signal persists, faint but steady, repeating its single plea for help. There is no sign of danger, no clear warning, yet an unspoken tension fills the air. 15 years ago the asteroid came here. It vanished without a trace. Now the eclipse moves closer, drawn into the same mystery. No one speaks of what might happen next. For now they focus on the task at hand, descending toward a world that defies all logic. The planet waits, silent, calm, unknowable, and Eclipse answers the call. The Eclipse begins its descent, engines roaring softly as the ship breaks through the atmosphere of E27b. Beneath it the alien landscape comes into view, vast and untouched, an endless expanse of greenery, framed by distant mountains that are like sentinels on the horizon. The boosters ignite, sending plumes of smoke and dust curling up from the ground as the ship's landing systems engage, carefully guiding it to the surface. For the first time in 15 years, a human vessel touches down on this mysterious planet. The Eclipse lands steadily, its hull gleaming faintly against the vibrant backdrop. The ship's systems work overtime, adapting to this new environment, scanning the air, the soil, the strange, rich vegetation surrounding the clearing. The AI discovers its findings. No immediate threats are detected. The air is breathable, the gravity stable, but the land remains eerily silent. The crew feels the shift as the engines cool, their vessel now motionless. For Captain Carter, this moment is a test of her leadership. The ship has brought them here safely, but what lies beyond its walls is unknown. Dr. Munro, staring out at the landscape through the ship's observation windows, is overcome with awe. To him, this is no barren wasteland. This is a treasure trove of potential discovery. His brother tightens his grip on the ship's controls, his instincts already telling him to keep the engines ready, just in case. Captain Hayes remains quiet, his sharp mind scanning every detail, every signal, ready to question AI's every move. The ground around the Eclipse is alive, with unfamiliar flora. Alien grasses that shimmer faintly in the filtered sunlight, and thick, towering trees that stretch toward the sky like silent guardians. The mountains in the distance rise sharply, their peaks veiled by low-hanging clouds. Everything about this planet feels untouched, undisturbed for centuries, maybe millennia, until now. And yet there is a lingering tension. No movement, no sign of animal life, no sound but the faint wind brushing through the alien trees. It is too calm, too still. The signal that brought them here, the garbled plea for help, is the only thing that breaks the silence, still faintly repeating in the background. The crew knows this is just the beginning. What lies beyond this clearing remains a mystery. For now the Eclipse has landed. The question is whether they will ever leave. The airlock hisses open, releasing a faint mist as the ship seals behind them. The twin brothers Elias and Riley step out into the surface of E27b. Their boots sink slightly onto the soft, moss-like ground which shimmers faintly under the pale sunlight. Around them the towering trees stretch high, their smooth trunks vanish into a dense green canopy. The sunlight filters through in scattered beams, casting an ethereal glow over the alien landscape. Elias moves forward with excitement, his eyes wide with wonder as he takes in the unfamiliar surroundings. His scanner hums steadily, collecting data on the atmosphere and terrain. He reaches out to touch a vine-like plant, its translucent leaves glowing faintly, evidence of a thriving ecosystem. The planet seems full of life, a stark contrast to the barren classification in the archives. To Elias, this is a discovery beyond anything he'd hoped for, a chance to uncover the mysteries of an uncharted world. Riley follows closely behind, though his pace is slower, more measured. He observes the landscape with quiet caution, his eyes scanning the horizon. The stillness of the place unsettles him. The silence feels unnatural, almost too perfect. The dense forest stretches endlessly before them. The distant mountains now visible on the far side of the clearing. Their jagged peaks rise sharply against the sky. The air feels heavy, as though waiting, watching. Despite the beauty, there's an underlying tension that Riley cannot seem to shake. Elias continues to explore, absorbed by the planet's strange glowing flora. The plants seem to pulse with a faint energy, their bioluminescence an eerie contrast to the stillness of the environment. Riley hesitates, scanning the edges of the clearing. His instincts tell him something is off, but there's no sign of danger. Only the quiet, the endless quiet. Elias doesn't pause, driven by the urge to study and understand everything around him. Riley, however, is more hesitant, his eyes flickering back and forward, the distant silhouette of the eclipse. It feels like the ship is miles away, even though it's a short distance behind them. The vastness of the planet, with its towering trees and alien landscape, give an overwhelming sense of isolation. The brothers share a quiet moment. The weight of the unknown is still settling in. Elias, eager to push forward, takes a few more steps into the dense foliage. Riley stands still for a moment, watching his brother with growing unease, but ultimately he follows. Whatever waits in this strange world, they'll face it together. The exploration continues, as the planet's secrets remain just out of reach, waiting to be uncovered. The landscape shifts as the brothers make their way deeper into the alien terrain. The soft moss beneath their boots gives way to jagged rocks and uneven ground. The dense forest begins to thin, replaced by a series of towering cliffs and outcroppings that seem to form a natural barrier, creating a secluded enclave nestled within the landscape. The distant mountains loom larger now, their rocky peaks stretching towards the sky. Elias leads the way, drawn forward by the promise of more discoveries, his eyes scanning every surface for signs of life or anomaly. Riley follows, still cautious, his gaze sweeping the rock formations with a sense of unease. The air here feels cooler, heavier, the silence even more oppressive. The rock walls rise around them like alien sentinels, watching, waiting. As they explore the rocky enclave, Elias's foot catches on something, a sharp angular ridge hidden beneath the surface. He stumbles but quickly recovers. His curiosity is piqued. He reaches down and brushes aside some loose debris, revealing what seems to be the faint outline of a structure. A large stone slab embedded in the rock face. It's smooth and symmetrical, far too perfect to be natural. His pulse quickens. This is no ordinary rock formation. Riley steps closer, squinting at the opening. A sense of caution tightens in his chest. The stone slab is massive, a perfect rectangle with edges that almost appear too straight to be the result of erosion. The markings on the surface are worn and faded, but they suggest something ancient, perhaps a long-lost civilization or something even older, buried deep beneath the surface. With a mixture of hesitation and awe, Elias runs his fingers over the markings, trying to decipher them. The rock feels cool and smooth, as though it's been untouched for centuries. The surface hums lightly, as if reacting to his touch, but there's no movement, no immediate sign of what lies beyond. Riley glances around the enclave, his instincts telling him to proceed with caution, but the allure of the discovery is too strong. They've found something hidden, something significant. Elias steps back slightly and motions for Riley to help. Together they brace against the stone, attempting to move the slab, and after a moment of pressure it shifts, leaving a faint gap. To their amazement, the rocks in front of them shift, revealing an entrance to what seems like an underground cave. The darkness beyond is impenetrable, but the brothers exchange a glance. Despite the unknowns, despite the silence that surrounds them, they both know what it is. The entrance to something deeper, a discovery that could change everything. The cave, or whatever lies within, beckons. The rocky enclave opens into a vast underground expanse, the walls of the cavern rising to an unseeable height. Swallowed by the darkness above, the air grows cooler, heavier. As Elias and Riley venture deeper, their footsteps echo against the stone, breaking the unnerving silence that surrounds them. The ground beneath their boots is uneven, covered with loose debris that crunches beneath their weight. As they move further in, their lights flicker on, revealing the true scale of what lies before them. The cavern stretches far beyond what the eye can comprehend, an enormous hollow space, its vastness impossible to fully take in. The walls, smooth and polished, were carved with intricate patterns, symbols that pulse with an eerie glow, as though they are alive, shifting in rhythm with the heartbeat of the planet itself. The air hums with an unseen energy, a presence that feels ancient and forgotten, yet somehow ever watchful. The floor is dotted with colossal stone columns, towering like ancient giants, their surfaces etched with more glowing symbols, their bases deeply rooted in the earth. These massive structures seem to support nothing but the weight of time itself, stretching upwards towards an unseen ceiling. The further they move into the cavern, the more overwhelming it becomes, each step taking them deeper into the heart of something ancient, something beyond understanding. At the far end of the chamber, massive stone doors loom like guardians. They are unlike anything the brothers have ever seen, far too large and imposing to be mere entranceways. The carvings on the doors mirror the symbols scattered across the walls and columns, their glow intensifying as they approach. The size of the temple is so immense that the doors themselves seem almost like distant landmarks in an impossibly vast city. They cannot see the far wall, not even close. The sheer scale of this place is beyond comprehension. Elias is captivated, every inch of him drawn to the mystery. His eyes dart from the glowing symbols to the columns, to the grandness of the space itself. This is not just a cave, it's a sanctuary, a place of unknown purpose. The glowing symbols seem to pulse with ancient energy, almost as if they're calling to them, beckoning them to uncover the secrets hidden deep within. The closer they get to the stone doors, the more Riley feels the weight of something intangible, an eerie sense that they are being watched, that this place is not as empty as it seems. Every shadow, every flicker of light seems loaded with meaning, and the deeper they go, the stronger the sensation grows. There is more to this temple than just its vastness. The very air vibrates with it, an almost palpable sense of power that seems to hum beneath their feet. The cavern, the columns, the glowing symbols, they are only the beginning. What lies beyond those massive stone doors? The brothers don't know yet, but one thing is certain. They have uncovered the entrance to something far older and far more dangerous than they could have imagined. The cavern stretches impossibly wide, its vastness swallowing the brothers whole. The sheer scale of the space is overwhelming. A dark and forgotten temple that has been lost to time. Towering columns of stone rise like ancient sentinels, their surface is smooth and worn, etched with patterns that are nearly impossible to discern in the faint light. Above them the ceiling disappears into an endless void, leaving the chamber's boundaries uncertain, as if it goes on forever. The air is thick and still, untouched with time, yet weighted with the silent presence of something ancient. But despite the enormity of the chamber, it is the glowing symbols on the stone floor that capture the brothers' attention. Scattered across the surface are intricate patterns, a web of symbols that stretch out in delicate overlapping designs. They glow faintly, each symbol radiating a soft rhythmic light as if pulsing with an inner life. The glow isn't constant, but shifts in intensity. It ebbs and flows in sync with the stillness of the cavern. Some symbols are simple, others are more complex, but all share a haunting perfect symmetry that suggests an order too deliberate to be random. As Elias and Riley move closer, the glow becomes more pronounced. The symbols are not static. The closer they get, the more they shift, twist, and rearrange in a fluid motion, as though they are alive, breathing, or responding to their presence. The lines bend in strange angles, arcs looping into unexpected shapes, only to unfurl into new patterns. What once appeared as a simple spiral transforms into an intricate lattice of intersecting lines, only to dissolve into a different configuration moments later. The light of the symbols flickers across the stone floor, casting eerie reflections on the cavern walls. It is as if the stone itself is reacting to the presence of the explorers. There is no pattern to how the symbols change, no visible force that drives their movement. They seem to shift of their own accord without explanation, in ways that are both mesmerizing and unsettling. As Elias lowers himself to examine one symbol more closely, he notices that it's not only the shape that shifts, but also the intensity of its light. The glow pulses, ebbing and flowing, sometimes strong, sometimes weak, as though in response to his movements or thoughts. The intricate carvings beneath the glow appear almost organic, as if the symbols were part of something larger, something alive. Riley steps back, scanning the surrounding area, feeling an unease stir in his gut. The silence of the cavern is oppressive, and the symbols' strange behaviour only deepens the sense of being watched, as though the entire space is alive and aware of their presence. The glowing symbols seem to beckon, but not in a welcoming way. Instead, they present an enigma, a mystery too complex to decipher. They feel ancient, a message lost in time, and yet somehow they seem to respond to the brothers' every movement. The air grows heavier, as though the cavern itself is holding its breath. Every symbol in the intricate pattern radiates its own unique light, yet they seem to synchronize in their flickering, creating a strange rhythm that echoes throughout the temple. The brothers feel as if they are standing on the edge of something monumental, something far beyond their understanding. The further they look, the more complex the symbols become, until it's impossible to see where one ends and the next begins. The lines blur together, creating a vast interconnected network that stretches across the entire floor, as though this is only a fragment of something much larger, something that has been waiting for centuries. The patterns continue to shift as the brothers continue to watch, constantly morphing, as if part of the elaborate puzzle is meant to be solved. The designs appear to tell a story, but its meaning remains elusive, just out of reach. They are drawn to the symbols, unable to look away, captivated by their endless transformation, but beneath the awe there is a deep sense of unease, a foreboding that grows stronger the longer they stare. The glowing patterns seem to hold secrets meant for eyes far older than theirs, secrets that were never meant to be discovered. Each shift in the symbol brings with it a new question. Why do they glow? What is their purpose? Who left them here and for what reason? The light they emit is not merely an illumination, but an invitation, an allure that seems to reach into their very souls, beckoning them forward. Yet it is clear that symbols are not meant to be understood easily. They are part of something far older, far more advanced, and far more dangerous than anything the brothers could ever have anticipated. As the glow pulses and shifts beneath their feet, the weight of the cavern presses down on them. The symbols are not just a puzzle, they are a warning, an enigma that demands respect, a riddle that can only be solved by those with the knowledge to decipher it. The brothers stand on the edge of discovery, but the deeper they delve into the meaning of these glowing markings, the more they realise that some mysteries may be better left unsolved. Back aboard the ship, the crew is still reeling from the strange discoveries on the planet. The quiet hum of this ship's system is broken only by the sound of their own thoughts, heavy with questions, but suddenly an eerie noise cuts through the stillness. Distorted static, followed by the unmistakable sound of a voice. At first it's unclear, the words are garbled, cutting in and out, but gradually they become clearer. The voice is one of their own, the voice of Dr. Elias Monroe, but it is different, distorted, distant, and oddly detached, as though the words are not coming from him, but from somewhere far away, somewhere beyond their reach. The crew stands frozen as the voice fills the room, carrying an unsettling calmness that seems at odds with the message being delivered. The voice speaks of becoming one with the planet, of transcending into a higher state of existence, a plane of being that cannot be fully understood. The voice describes an expansive, symbiotic connection with the planet, a consciousness that is both vast and all-encompassing. There is a strange allure to the words, a pull that feels almost hypnotic, as if the planet itself is calling them, offering them something unimaginable, something beyond what they've known. As the transmission continues, the voice urges them to join, to come to the cabin and embrace this new state of being. The invitation feels like an omen, a dark pull that grows stronger with every word. The mention of ascension, of seeing beyond the physical world, creates a sense of unease in the crew. The words are tempting, promising something far more beyond their understanding, but there is an underlying horror in them. The crew can feel it, the shift in the air, the change in the atmosphere, as though something unseen is watching them and waiting for them. The voice speaks of beauty and peace, of feeling the universe unfold in ways that the human mind cannot comprehend. But there is an underlying tension in the message, a foreboding sense that something is terribly wrong. The voice, once calm, now seems to tremble, as though it's fighting to remain composed. It urges them to come, to not be afraid, but the voice only grows more chilling with every passing moment. And then the transmission cuts off abruptly. Silence fills the room. Heavier than before, the crew is left staring at the speakers, their minds racing to make every sense of the impossible message they've just heard. Fear grips them, tightening their chest as they try to reconcile the words with the reality of what they've encountered. The calm invitation, the promise of ascension, none of it makes sense, but the weight of it lingers, filling the space with an undeniable sense of dread. The crew now knows that something has happened to their comrade. He has changed, transformed in ways that defy explanation. But whatever it is calling them, inviting them to follow, to join in whatever higher existence he has found. But there is no comfort in that invitation, only fear. The unknown is no longer distant, it is here with them, and it is waiting. The crew exchanges looks, each one filled with growing terror as they realise the true horror of what lies ahead. Something has taken hold of their comrade, something that is no longer human, and whatever it is calling them to follow. In the heart of the temple, the air is thick with a strange pressure, as if the very walls are closing in. The twin, disorientated and frantic, moves through the massive cavern, his heart racing with panic. His mind is a whirlwind of thoughts, each one more frantic than the last. What has happened? What is this place? His feet pound against the stone floor, each step echoing in silence, but the sound only amplifies the deep, oppressive stillness that surrounds him. It feels as though the temple is alive, watching, responding to his every movement. He cannot comprehend it. He cannot make sense of the overwhelming weight of what he has just witnessed. The temple, with its towering columns and vast, unending expanse, had once seemed like a marvel, an ancient structure filled with mystery, but now it feels like a trap, a labyrinth designed to ensnare him, to draw him deeper into the endless shifting corridors. The glowing symbols, the strange patterns, the pulsing energy, all of it beyond his understanding. And the voice, a voice that has reached out to him from the speakers, still lingers in his mind, haunting him with every step. His breath is shallow, his vision blurred, the walls around him seem to stretch and bend in impossible angles. The shifting patterns on the floor, the symbols that once seemed so alien, now feel like they are closing in on him. He cannot escape them. He tries to focus, tries to push them from his mind, but they keep coming, swirling in his peripheral vision, flickering and changing with every passing moment. There is no sign of his brother. There has been no sign of him for a long time. It was like he blinked and he was no longer there. His legs are growing heavy, the weight of fear pressing down on him with each step. The temple feels like it is alive, shifting and warping around him, pulling him into its depths. He cannot escape it. He cannot understand what is happening. The further he runs, the less he feels like he is in control. His mind is slipping, the thoughts racing too fast to catch. The strange patterns are blurring. The symbols are distorting into shapes that do not belong to this world. The air is thick with a sense of something ancient, something terrifying, and he cannot push it away. Every turn he takes seems to lead him deeper into the heart of the temple, into its cold embrace. The walls seem to move, to shift in ways that make no sense, and the darkness presses in from all sides. There is no escape, no way out. The reality of it is suffocating, and he feels the very space around him is pressing in, trying to consume him, to pull him into this endless maw. He stumbles, catching himself against one of the massive columns, his hands shaking as he tries to steady himself. His breath is coming in ragged gasps, and the sense of overwhelming fear is almost too much to bear. The air feels colder now, colder than it ever has. The shadows stretch long across the floor, twisting unnaturally in the dim light. The glowing symbols on the floor are no longer just markings. They feel like they are alive, watching him, following his every move. They pulse in time with his heart, their light flickering like a heartbeat, like some unholy rhythm that seems to speak directly to him. His mind is unraveling, the strange alien energy seeping into his thoughts, clouding his judgment, blurring his vision. His every instinct tells him to run, to get out, but the further he goes, the deeper he is drawn into the heart of the temple. There is no way out. The walls are closing in. The panic that grips him is all-consuming. His thoughts are scattered, disconnected. He cannot focus on anything for more than a moment before the next horrifying image flashes in his mind. The symbols swirling, the air growing thick with an oppressive force he cannot escape. It seems like the fabric of reality is being torn apart, and he is at the centre of it. He stops running, unable to go any further. His body is trembling, sweat coating his skin as he stands in the middle of the cavernous space. The symbols on the floor pulsate faster now, their light growing stronger, more intense, until the entire room seems to be alive with energy. The walls, the columns, the floor, it all seems to be vibrating, humming with an alien resonance that rattles his very bones. It is as though the temple is calling to him, beckoning him closer, urging him to come, to understand. to give in to whatever power it holds, but he cannot. He cannot give in. He does not understand what is happening, but he knows one thing for certain. Something is wrong. Something terrible has happened to his brother, and he is caught in its grip as well. His mind is unravelling, slipping further from his control with each passing second, and the temple with its vast, unfeeling walls and its glowing symbols is slowly consuming him. He tries to scream, to call out for help, but the words catch in his throat. The sound is swallowed by the thick, heavy air around him, leaving him in silence once more, alone in the depths of the temple. The deeper he goes, the less he feels like himself, and the more the temple closes in, the more he understands. Escape is no longer an option. His heart pounds in his chest, his pulse loud in his ears as he stumbles through the labyrinthine halls of the temple. The walls, once awe-inspiring, now feel like a prison, closing in on him with every step. The air is thick, oppressive, and he can taste the metallic tang of fear on his tongue. His mind is a chaotic swirl of panic, struggling to comprehend the surreal nightmare unfolding around him. Every corner he turns seems to bring him deeper into the vast, endless cavern. The space around him is growing more distorted by the second. He can't make sense of it. The symbols, the vibrations in the air, the overwhelming feeling of being watched. It all blurs together, twisting his perception. Each breath is harder to take as the temple seems to pulse with an unnatural energy, a force that feels alive, aware, but there is no time to process it. There is only the urge to escape, to flee the oppressive weight of what presses it against his chest. His legs burn from the effort, but he forces himself to run, the sound of his footsteps echoing like a warning through the vast emptiness. The walls are silent, but his mind screams at him, urging him to go faster, to break free. He can't see what's ahead. He doesn't dare to slow down to look. There is only the next step, the next corner, the next breath. But then, without warning, the ground beneath him shifts, the floor cracking and buckling. He stumbles forward. His hands shoot out to catch himself against the stone, but there is nothing to hold on to. The walls feel like they are warping around him, closing him in with crushing force. The temple itself seems to bend, as though it's pulling him into its depths, keeping him from escaping. His pulse quickens, and for a moment he loses all sense of direction. It feels like the air is pressing against him, constricting his chest as the walls loom closer. He spins around, his eyes darting frantically for escape, but there is nothing, just the endless expanse of stone, the ever-shifting layout of the temple. The path is gone, swallowed by the depths. He reaches out, trying to steady himself, but his hand meets nothing. It's as though the temple has absorbed him, trapped him within its impossible geometry. The floor trembles again, and he stumbles backward, falling hard onto the cold stone. He can't hear the hum of the structure. He feels it deep in his bones. It's not a sound but a vibration, one that seems to invade every corner of his mind, twisting his thoughts. The air grows heavier, more suffocating, and his skin prickles with the sensation of something watching him. Something is wrong, something is here, but it is not human. His instincts scream at him to run, to move, but his body refuses to obey. His limbs feel like they're filled with lead, too heavy to lift, his mind spinning with terror. Then, as if in response to the panic, the very stone beneath him begins to shift. He looks up, eyes wide. Massive stone blocks like ancient doors begin to descend from the ceiling, sliding silently into place, cutting off any path he thought he might take. There is no way out. The walls close in on him. He is trapped, his breath coming in ragged gasps. A loud grinding noise fills the air as the stone moves, and he tries to scramble to his feet, but his legs are unsteady, his movement slow and clumsy. He reaches towards the now closed door, his fingers brushing against the stone surface. It's cold, too cold, like the touch of something ancient, something that hasn't felt the warmth of life in eons. And then he hears it, the sound, distant at first, but growing louder, a crack, a tear, the fabric of the world ripping itself apart. The walls move again, but not in the way they have before. This time they are shifting in a way that defies all logic. The stone itself warps, folding inward as though it's alive, responding to his presence. There's no way of escaping it, no path to hide. The temple itself is consuming him, pulling him in, dragging him towards something he cannot understand. He tries to scream, but his voice is lost in the cavernous space, swallowed by the temple's unyielding silence. The walls continue their slow, inevitable motion. His limbs are useless, his body unresponsive, as though the very force of the temple is paralyzing him. He falls to his knees, unable to move against the force. His hands trembling as they scrape against the stone, desperate for purchase, for something to hold on to. And then it happens. He feels it. A sudden sharp pain that rips through his side. As though the very air around him is solidified into jagged, cutting blades. His body convulses, pain shooting through him, as something strikes from the dark, from the unseen corners of the temple. The pain is excruciating. Unlike anything he has ever known, the force pulling him in is stronger than he can resist, and his vision begins to blur, fading at the edges. He tries to push forward, no escape, but the stone grips him, pulling him apart with cold, indifferent force. His body begins to break, his flesh tearing as the temple's ancient power rips him into pieces with lasers that have come out of nowhere. The last thing he feels is the overwhelming sense of cold, the absolute stillness that comes with the end. The temple has claimed him, consumed him in its depths, and now nothing remains but the echo of his struggle, swallowed by the vast, endless silence. The last two members of the crew are still aboard the spaceship, their faces drawn with the weight of the events that have unfolded. The others, the two twin brothers, are gone. One disappeared without a trace, and the other, who had ventured deeper into the heart of the alien landscape, met a brutal end. The shock of losing them has left the survivors reeling, uncertain and filled with dread. What they've discovered on this planet and the horrifying circumstances that have led them to this point have shown them one inescapable truth: they need to leave. Lynn, who has always carried the mantle of leadership with determination, is now faced with a decision that feels heavier than anything she's ever encountered before. As the captain, she is responsible for the safety of the crew, but that responsibility has been shattered. The twins are gone. The planet has shown itself more than just an inhospitable world. It's something alive, something that wants them there, something that takes. Her mind is clouded with the gravity of what has happened, but the logical part of her knows that the only option is to leave. She knows that to stay longer is to risk her life and her crew members' life for answers that they may never find. Sam, on the other hand, is torn. A biologist by trade, his obsession with the idea of alien life runs deep. The possibility of finding proof of extraterrestrial intelligence, something that could change everything, has always been the driving force of his career. The planet, with its strange energy, its symbols, its inexplicable phenomena, calls to him like nothing has ever called before. He has always wanted to make a discovery that would alter the course of history, but he never imagined the cost would be this great. The deaths of the twins weigh heavily on them. Even his scientific curiosity can't drown out the terror gnawing at him. The planet is no longer a mystery to be solved, it is a danger that must be escaped. Lynn doesn't hesitate. The fear has taken hold of her, but so has the sense of responsibility. The ship and the mission are no longer the priority. Staying alive is. The finality of her decision is clear, even if it feels like a failure. The planet's mysteries will remain locked behind walls of its alien temple, behind the symbols that still glow faintly in their minds. They cannot afford to be heroes. They cannot afford to chase the answers any longer. "Let's go," Lynn says, the words slipping out before she has fully processed the relief she feels in making the decision. They both know the ship's escape route must be swift, but there is no longer any hesitation. Sam, despite the pull of his curiosity, knows she is right. He looks at Lynn, meeting her eyes, seeing the resolve in her gaze. There is no turning back. He swallows his disappointment, the deep desire to learn more about the place still churning inside him. But there is also an understanding that the risk of remaining is simply too great. The twins' fate cannot be ignored. The strange presence on the planet feels too powerful to deny. With a reluctant sigh, he moves to help prepare the ship for launch. It is not the way he wanted things to end, but survival has become the only goal now. The ship powers up, the hum of the engines filling the silence between them. For a moment, both of them are still, as if the ship is bracing itself for escape. The vast expanse of the alien world is still visible from the ship's windows, the colours of the planet glowing faintly in the distance. As the ship lifts off from the surface, both of them can feel the shift in the air, the weight of the planet lifting from their shoulders, but they break through the atmosphere. Their sense of relief is tempered by the nagging feeling deep in their gut. They are leaving, but they know what they've encountered on the world will haunt them forever. The symbols, the whispers, the knowledge that something far greater than they could have ever imagined lies just beneath the surface. Those thoughts will stay with them. Even as they enter the cold void of space, the memories of the planet, and the things they saw there continue to linger, but for now, the immediate threat is clearly behind them. As the ship ascends further, the planet shrinking behind them, Lynn and Sam are left with the weight of their survival. There's no turning back now. Their journey may not have brought them the answers they sought, but it has brought them one undeniable truth. Sometimes the unknown is better left untouched. The planet is behind them, and though it may never leave their minds, it's clear that the chapter of their mission is over. For Lynn and Sam, it's not about answers anymore. It's about making it out alive. As the ship hurtles back towards the planet, Lynn and Sam feel a strange creeping, insidious force tightening around them. It's not just a malfunction. It's a sense that something far more intelligent, far more powerful is manipulating them. The way the ship is being brought down feels deliberate, as if the planet itself reached inside the ship and is twisting its systems with terrifying precision. At first, Lynn tries to shake off the dread creeping up her spine. She focuses on control, her fingers flying over the consoles, but every adjustment she makes is met with resistance. The ship refuses to cooperate, as if mocking her every attempt. The instruments flicker and shift, and there is no doubt in her mind now. This isn't a random malfunction. This is something else. It's as if the ship knows its every command, every pulse of energy, every movement. The engines, once so powerful and reliable, now seem to bend under the force of foreign will. It's as if the very essence of the ship's systems are being overwritten, manipulated by an external presence. She can feel it in the subtle way the ship's movements synchronize with her own, as if responding to an unseen hand that knows exactly what to do. It feels intimate, invasive. Sam too feels it, his body rigid with fear. He's a scientist, and the ship spirals back towards the planet. He begins to piece together what is happening. The planet is not just alive, it knows the ship. It knows how the engines work. It understands the systems and the mechanics of the ship as if it's been tuned to them. And then the most terrifying thought strikes him. The planet has merged with the twins. There's consciousness. Their very minds have been absorbed. And now through them the planet controls everything, down to the most intricate details of the operations. Sam's heart races as he begins to comprehend the extent of the planet's influence. The twins, especially the one who first vanished, had become part of the planet. Their bodies were lost, but their minds, their thoughts, those had merged with the world itself, becoming one with its vast, unfathomable intelligence. The planet is no longer just a lifeless rock. It has become sentient, aware. The twins' knowledge, their understanding of the ship's mechanics, has been siphoned into the very fabric of the planet, and now it is using that knowledge to control the ship. Sam speaks to the ship, but his throat is tight with panic. He watches helplessly as Lynn struggles. The ship's movement defies any of her commands. The ship's descent is rapid, and they are no longer just plummeting through the atmosphere. They are being pulled, guided, as if the planet is using the twins' memory, their knowledge to ensure that the ship crashes. The once impossible angles of the ship's fall feel strangely familiar, as if the planet is perfectly attuned to the ship's systems, using the twins' mind to guide the vessel precisely to where it wants to go. There's a horrific symmetry to the way the ship is moving. The ship's controls seem to react as though they know Lynn's touch, like they are anticipating her every move, and yet every attempt to steer or regain control is met with failure, as if the ship itself is denying her agency, forcing her to surrender to the planet's will. The terrifying realization sinks in. The planet doesn't just want them, it is using them. It has turned the twins into conduits for its control. The consciousness is intertwined with it, feeding it knowledge, giving it power, allowing it to manipulate the ship with precision. They are not just victims of the planet, they are its agents. The planet has seized control of the very thing that was meant to carry them away. Lynn grits her teeth, desperately trying to override the systems, but it's no use. The ship is no longer hers, it is theirs. The twins' mind merged with the planet, now guiding the ship back towards the alien surface. It's a sickening, suffocating realization. The planet isn't just pulling them in, it is using their knowledge to make sure they never leave. The ship's descent accelerates, spiraling ever faster, as if the ship is savouring the control it holds over them. The once peaceful silence of space is broken only by the sound of their breath, the overwhelming noise of the ship's tumbling flight, and the cold realization that they are being driven towards a fate they can no longer escape. The twins' consciousness is now a part of the planet, And as the ship stumbles back towards the surface, Lynn and Sam are helpless, trapped within the grasp of something that has known them, their every movement, long before they ever set foot on this cursed world. The crash left Lynn and Sam dazed, the force of the impact having thrown them to the cold floor. Their senses are slow to return, but as their vision clears, a chilling realization sets in. The ship is no longer functioning as it should. It feels different. The air around them is thick, oppressive, and charged with something they can't name. There is palpable heaviness and almost unnatural force that presses in from all directions. Lynn forces herself upright, her muscles aching from the impact. Her thoughts race as she scans the ship, but something feels off. The hum of the ship's systems, the familiar low buzz that has always been there, it's gone. Instead, there's an eerie silence, punctuated only by the faint flickering of the control panels. But it's not just the absence of the sound that unsettles her. It's the way the ship's systems are behaving, flickering, flashing, as though the ship's very essence is now intertwined with the planet's presence. It's as if something else has taken over. Sam pushes himself up beside her, his face pale, and there's a look of dawning horror in his eyes. He doesn't have to say anything. The two of them feel it, a strange weight pressing down on them. It's as if the planet itself has reached into the ship and is bending the systems to its will. Every monitor and control panel pulses with unfamiliar rhythm, as though they are now being directed by something or someone other than themselves. Lynn's hand hovers over the console, but she hesitates. The lights flicker again, and for a moment the ship seems to respond in a way that feels almost intentional. It's as if the very ship is aware of their presence, reacting to their every move with a disturbing, knowing precision. Then, without warning, the loudspeakers crackle to life. The voice that emerges is distorted, a faint echo at first, but it's unmistakable. It's the voice of the missing twin, twisted and warped by whatever force now controls the planet, and now the ship itself. The tone is dissonant, unnatural, and it seems to reverberate in their minds, as though it's not just coming from the speakers, but from within them. The voice speaks in cryptic fragments, but its meaning is clear enough. The twins, or rather their consciousness, has merged with the planet. They have become part of it, an extension of its will. The ship, once an object of human engineering, now seems alive, as if the planet's intelligence has found its way into every system. It has absorbed the twins' knowledge, their memories, their understanding of the ship, and is using that knowledge to twist the ship's functions against them. The walls of the ship hum with a strange resonance. The control panels blink erratically, as if responding to commands that are not their own. The systems no longer follow the crew's intentions. Instead, it's as though the planet's feeding on their every action, anticipating them, using their knowledge to guide the ship into a direction that they cannot control. Elias is still staring at the flickering panels, his mind struggling to comprehend what's happening. It's not just a malfunction, it's something much deeper, more insidious. The ship is not just failing, it's becoming an extension of the planet. Every button, every dial, every control has been corrupted by the knowledge and consciousness of the twins, merged with the planet's power. It's as though the planet has absorbed them completely, and now it's using them against the remaining crew. The twins' knowledge isn't a gift, it's a weapon, and the ship is its tool. Lynn's thoughts race as she fights to stay calm. The voice on the loudspeakers is growing more distorted, but the meaning is clear. They are no longer alone. The planet knows them. It knows their every move, their every weakness. It knows the ship's systems, and it knows how to use it against them. There's no escape. The ship has become an extension of the planet's wills, as if the boundaries between the ship, the twins, and the planet itself have dissolved. Every command, every turn, every attempt to regain control is futile. The planet's intelligence is too vast, too deeply integrated with the ship's systems now. Sam, his voice a rasp, looks at Lynn, his fear palpable, but beneath it there is something else, a strange sense of helplessness. They are trapped. The planet has claimed not just the twins, but the very essence of the ship, and now it's using that knowledge to turn the ship into their prison. Lynn's hand trembles as she touches the console. The systems flicker again, responding to her touch with an eerie precision. The ship is alive now, in a way that feels wrong, a vessel for something far beyond their control. It has become a conduit for the planet's consciousness. Its power and every decision they make is being guided by the knowledge of the twins, now twisted and weaponized by the planet. The crew is no longer in charge of this ship. They are at the mercy of the planet's will, and the systems continue to flicker and hum. Lynn can feel the weight of it all. The ship isn't just a machine, it's become part of something much bigger, much darker, and the planet, with its vast unknowable power, is now in complete control. Lynn and Sam stand frozen in the oppressive silence of the ship. The sudden hiss of a hatch opening cuts through the tension. The sound is strange, almost unnatural, as though the ship itself is exhaling, releasing something that it has been holding in for far too long. Before either of them can react, a swarm of thousands of tiny metallic figures begin to emerge. These aren't just pieces of broken machinery or malfunctioning parts. They are something much more sinister. The microbots. Small and sleek, drift effortlessly out of the hatch, their delicate forms shimmering in the dim light of the switch. They float with purpose, each one moving with an eerie precision, their glinting surfaces reflecting the control systems that have twisted beyond recognition. Lynn's blood runs cold as she recognizes them. These microbots, once part of scientific protocol designed to interact with alien life, are now something far more dangerous. They were originally created to infiltrate and subdue alien species, specifically to attach themselves to their brain functions, to gain control and to subdue the mind of their target. Their purpose was to neutralize any threat, ensuring no alien life form could escape or resist being captured and examined. But now, with the planet's control over the ship, it seems the microbots have taken on a new purpose. They are no longer simply tools of capture. They are part of the planet's new, terrifying plan. They swarm like an organic cloud, each bot gliding and twisting with unnerving synchronicity, as if they are responding to an unseen command. Lynn and Sam can feel their presence, their cold, calculated movements, even before they fully understand the danger. The microbots are moving towards them with a singular focus. Their glimmering surfaces flicker with data, tiny lights flashing as they navigate the wreckage, guided by an intelligence far beyond what they were originally designed for. Lynn's mind races. The planet has twisted them into its own tools, using the crew's knowledge and the ship's systems to direct the swarm. Elias steps back instinctively, his heart hammering in his chest. He understands the function of these bots. They were designed to disable, to incapacitate, to control the mind of the species they were sent to subdue, and now it seems the planet is using it against them for the same purpose. The thought of having their brain manipulated by the very microbots that were once designed for capture sends a chill down his spine. It's as if the planet has taken the worst of the ship's technology and turned it against them. The swarm doesn't slow. Thousands of bots move in perfect synchronicity, closing in on the crew. Their movements are so fluid, so precise, that they seem almost like a single organism, one mind controlling the whole. Each microbot is a tiny machine, its purpose clear and cold, to attach itself, to take control, to strip away their independence. Lynn's hand shoots out towards the console, desperately trying to override the system, but it's no use. The ship, no, the planet, is now in control, and she feels the connection between them. The microbots are part of that, an extension of the planet's will, sentient and deadly. They are the final step in the planet's plan to ensure their submission, their capture, and possibly their destruction. The microbots reach them, their movements quickening. The air crackles with tension, and Lynn feels her pulse race, her breathing shallow. She can hear the faint whir of the bots' tiny mechanical parts, the buzz of their magnetic field. She knows they are coming for them, not just as threats, but as instruments of something much darker. These microbots are designed to subdue, to manipulate, and now they are the planet's weapon to ensure its dominance over any form of life that dares to trespass on its surface. Sam looks around, his eyes wide, searching for any way to stop them, but there is nothing he can do. It's as if the planet's will is everywhere, controlling every movement. The microbots hover around them like a storm of cold, calculated intent, each one floating closer, closing in. They are not just malfunctioning equipment, they are now part of the planet's consciousness, a direct extension of its power, wielded with terrifying precision. Lynn's fingers tremble as she tries to force herself to think through the panic. They have no weapons, no tools to fight back against the swarm. They are trapped in the heart of the ship, surrounded by these deadly, obedient machines that seem to know exactly what they are capable of. The twins, or what's left of them, are guiding the ship, and through them, the microbots. The planet has turned everything, the ship, the technology, the crew into its instruments. The microbots close in even further, and Lynn and Sam feel their presence with an unbearable intensity. The ship is no longer a place of safety. It has become a deadly trap, an extension of the planet's terrifying will. The microbots are only the first wave, but they are enough to ensure that the crew's fate is sealed, unless they can find a way to escape this relentless force that has taken hold of them. As the swarm of microbots descends on Sam, the first sensation he experiences is shock. Shock at how quickly it happens, at how helpless he feels. He never had a chance to resist. The bots enter with such precision, as they've been waiting for this moment, knowing exactly where to strike. The first microbot touches his lips, and Sam instinctively tries to push it away, but before he can move, more follow. One by one, they rush into his open mouth, their cold metallic surfaces scraping against his teeth, rushing down his throat. Panic grips him immediately as the tiny invasive machines flood his body. The sensation is unnatural. He feels them inside him, their presence foreign and alien. He tries to cough, to spit them out, but it's futile. More bots pour in, and they don't stop at his mouth. He can feel them slipping down his windpipe, lodging in his chest. His breath becomes shallow, strained, as they fill his lungs. They're everywhere now, invasive, crawling, burrowing deeper into him. His skin tingles with the feeling of their cold presence as they make their way through his veins, his bloodstream threading into his nervous system, the beating heart of his mind. Every inch of his body seems to be on fire, but it's a fire he can't control. Riley's thoughts start to fragment, his ability to think clearly stripped away as the bots work their way into his brain, merging with his neural pathways. He can feel them tugging at the edges of his mind, like fingers trying to pry open his thoughts. But they don't need to pry, they're already there, sinking deep, rewriting the very structure of his consciousness. He tries to scream, but the sound gets trapped in his chest, smothered by the microbots that are now taking full control. Sam's body convulses involuntarily. His muscles stiffen as the microbots integrate with his nervous system. His vision blurs, his hands shaking, but it's as if his limbs are no longer his own. The feeling of being a prisoner in his own body overwhelms him as the bots continue to drill deeper, taking over the processes he never thought he could lose control of. His heartbeat, his breathing, the impulses that made him move. Sam's mind is clouded by a thick, suffocating fog. He can feel the microbots carving through his memories, erasing them, blurring them with something new. His identity begins to fracture the man he used to be. His dreams, his past, his hopes start to disintegrate, replaced by an alien presence. The planet, the consciousness that resides deep within its surface, is claiming him now, absorbing everything he once was and turning it into something far darker. It's not just his body that the planet is taking, it's his very soul. Sam feels himself slipping, falling away from himself as though his thoughts are hijacked by the presence of the planet, guiding by the knowledge it has consumed from the twins. The planet speaking through him now, controlling his very thought, manipulating his every movement. His invaders, the microbots, have become an extension of that influence. His mind grows sluggish, his thoughts disjointed. At first there's an urge to fight, to push back, but with each passing moment that willpower slips further and further away. It's like drowning in slow motion. His mind drowning in a sea of alien intelligence, swallowed whole by the planet's will. And the more the bots burrow into his brain, the less he feels like himself. His memories, his emotions, his very sense of being fading, leaving only the awareness that he is no longer himself. Sam's body moves against his will now, controlled by the planet. He's still conscious, just enough to realise what is happening, but not enough to stop it. His eyes dart around, but everything seems distorted, like he's viewing the world through a foggy lens. His breath quickens as the sensation of helplessness overwhelms him, but the microbots in his brain drown out his own thoughts. He's nothing more than an observer in his own body, a silent passenger as the planet takes full control. The microbots are now deeply embedded in his brain, manipulating his neural processes with terrifying efficiency. Sam feels his body moving, his limbs obeying commands that aren't his own. His mind is no longer his. Every thought is filtered through the planet's influence, its intelligence slipping into the crevices of his psyche. The planet's presence is overpowering, like a weight pressing down on him, crushing his identity until there is nothing left. There is no resistance left in him now. His thoughts have been swallowed by the planet, reshaped into something foreign, something that is no longer Sam. His consciousness is a puppet, and the strings are being pulled into the planet's malevolent will. The planet has absorbed him, reshaped him, and Sam Hayes, the man who once stood on the ship with his crew, is no longer present. Only the planet remains. The remaining 2 crew members, Lynn and Sam, are frozen in place, their bodies no longer responding to their own will. The air around them crackles with an unnatural energy, the hum of the microbots filling the silence with a distant buzz, gradually growing louder, more insistent. As the last of the microbots swarm into their mouths, the presence of the planet tightens around them, controlling them with an unseen grip. Their eyes are wide, unblinking, as though they are caught between worlds, present yet distant, trapped within their own bodies. Sam and Lynn remain upright for a moment, each caught in the grip of something greater than themselves. Their limbs, once under their own control, are now slack and unmoving, save for the subtle twitch of fingers or the occasional shift of a head. The invasion of their bodies and minds has been completed. The microbots have taken full control, their tiny mechanical legs scuttling through their veins, threading deep into their nervous system. The planet's presence is now a part of them, feeding off their consciousness, twisting their thoughts into something alien. And then, without warning, both of them begin to float, as though gravity no longer holds any sway over them. It happens slowly at first, like they are rising in a dream, but the sensation is too real, too strange to ignore. Lynn's feet lift from the cold metal floor of the ship, her body weightless as though it has been commanded by a force outside her own understanding. Sam follows, his body defying the laws of nature, his feet lifting off the ground with a strange, eerie stillness. The ship around them begins to blur, fading into the background as the vessel itself is no longer of importance. The air between them and the ground thickens with an oppressive energy, the faintest shimmer surrounding them as the microbots hum with purpose. They are no longer walking, no longer bound by their bodies. Instead, they are floating, moving in the direction of something they cannot control, the entrance to the planet itself. Without a single word spoken, as if they are bound to some unseen will, their bodies glide effortlessly towards the hatch. It opens, almost as though anticipating their arrival. The 2 of them are drawn towards it. The hatch seems to pulse with life, alive with energy as the microbots move through their veins, and the planet's mind guides them forward. Outside the ship, the landscape stretches before them, the alien terrain of the planet stark and unforgiving. But it is no longer alien to Lynn and Sam. The pull is undeniable. The connection to the planet is too strong to ignore, too consuming. It calls to them, and their bodies move toward it, guided by a singular force. Microbots begin to swarm in unison, guiding them like a river of cold metal. The microbots spill out of the ship, moving toward the ancient temple on the planet's surface, an unspoken command driving them forward. The path is clear. They are no longer in control of their movements, their bodies simply vessels being drawn into the heart of the planet. The temple looms ahead, the vast and incomprehensible, like a door to another world, and the 2 crew members float toward it, bodies limp, eyes vacant. As they approach the temple, the swirling current of microbots envelops them, directing their every movement. The symbols on the temple's surface pulse as though recognizing their arrival, glowing with a strange alien light that seems to beckon them forward. The temple, a vast structure of stone and alien design, seems to respond to their presence. Its massive doors, impossibly large, begin to open slowly, the grinding view of stone against stone echoing through the eerie silence of the air. The microbots swarm around the 2 crew members, wrapping around them like a cold embrace, guiding them through the temple's entrance. The 2 crew are drawn in, floating through the air as if weightless, carried by the current of microbots toward the threshold of the alien structure. They pass through the opening, a massive stone door closing behind them, sealing them inside. The dark interior of the temple stretches out before them, an endless cavernous expanse that seems to pulse with life. And in that moment, they no longer feel like themselves. They no longer feel human. The planet's will is complete. Their minds are no longer their own. The bodies are controlled by their own impulses. They are part of the planet now, their consciousness fused with it, their actions governed by a will that is not their own. They are mere vessels, their identities absorbed by the planet, carried along by the microbots that have become an extension of its mind. The temple's secrets are now within them. They are no longer individuals. They are part of something far greater, far older. And as the microbots guide them deeper into the heart of the temple, they vanish into its shadows, their bodies now one with the planet that has claimed them. their minds forever entwined with its alien intelligence. The last traces of their humanity fade, swallowed by the abyss that now holds them. The temple stands quiet and dark, an ancient otherworldly structure, and yet it hums with a palpable sinister energy. Inside, the air is thick with tension as Lynn and Sam float helplessly toward the centre of the cavernous space. The reanimated head of Elias, once vibrant and full of purpose, now hovers before them. His face is a lifeless mask, his eyes wide and empty but glowing, as though locked into an eternal empty stare. He is a ghost of his former self, his consciousness long since absorbed by the planet. Lynn can feel herself being drawn closer, her limbs stiff and unresponsive, as if some unseen force has taken control of her body. Her mind, however, is still hers, barely. It's slipping, though, quickly. The microbots that had invaded her system, those tiny mechanical parasites, have done their work. Now they are extracting the very essence of who she is, her memories, her thoughts, everything. Beside her, Sam drifts into the same helpless state. His eyes dart nervously as the weight of what's happening crashes over him. His body, once under his control, now betrays him. Floating towards the epicenter of the temple, he fights against it, but his will is fading. The pull of the planet's intelligence is too strong, too overwhelming. Every thought, every breath feels like it's being stripped away from him, until nothing is left but the cold and yielding presence of the planet. The two of them, once individuals, once explorers, are now on the cusp of becoming vessels for the planet's insatiable hunger. Their knowledge, their memories, their identities, all of it being fed into the temple's vast and incomprehensible consciousness. The microbots swarm around them, burrowing deeper with each passing moment, feeding the planet's power and erasing everything that has made them who they are. As they float closer to Elias's reanimated head, Lynn can feel the finality of it. It is as if she's being drawn into the core of the planet's mind, her existence fading into oblivion, her thoughts now disjointed, fragmented. Time itself seems to stretch and warp as the planet pulls further and further into its grasp. Sam's mind begins to fragment too, his memories flashing before his eyes in broken snippets, scenes of his family, of his life before this mission, of the time on the ship. All of it begins to blur, becoming a jumbled mess until it fades completely, swallowed by the relentless pull of the planet. Then they are face to face with Elias's floating head, its eyes gleaming in the dim light of the temple. The presence of the planet is overwhelming now, an all-consuming force with no boundaries. The microbots swirl around them, and suddenly they feel it, an invasion, not of their bodies, but of their minds. The planet's consciousness downloads their identities, their knowledge, and their very essence into its own vast intelligence. The temple pulses with the energy as Elias's head flickers, its vacant expression reflecting the horror of what it has become, a vessel for the planet's insatiable hunger. His mind, once filled with obsession and curiosity, is now a part of the dark force that governs this place. The knowledge he gathered, the life he once sought, is now nothing more than fuel for the planet's evolution. Lynn's thoughts break apart as they merge with the temple's intelligence. The pieces of her mind scatter into the planet's vast network, absorbed into a system like a cog in a never-ending machine. She feels herself vanish, the last remnants of her identity erased. She is no longer Lynn Carter, the leader of the lost expedition. She is now a part of the planet, a mere echo in a vast sea of consciousness. Sam too succumbs to the force. His thoughts scatter, merging with the cold, calculating intelligence of the planet. The things that once made him human, the connections he had to his past, to his crew, those are now gone. He is absorbed, lost in this planetary network, and Elias, his head floating before them, is now a hollow symbol of the fate that awaits anyone who dares approach this cursed world. He has already been consumed, and now Lynn and Sam join the void. The planet has learned. It has grown more powerful with each mind it consumes. It is no longer just a place. It is a living entity, a black hole for consciousness, forever pulling in new souls to add to its intelligence. It feeds on them, evolves with them, and becomes ever more insatiable. Outside, the world spins, but inside the temple there is only silence, an eternal, unbroken stillness that resonates with the echoes of lost minds. Lynn and Sam are gone. Their memories, their thoughts are no more. The planet has consumed them, and will continue to do so endlessly, forever. The cycle repeats, as it always has, and the planet's hunger remains unquenched, an unstoppable force in the dark void of the universe.